everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Signed the Traitors, where we are going to discuss episode 6 of the Traitors US. It's titled Backstab and Betrayal, and I have to agree with that. I am here with my co-host, as always, the faithful Javier. Javier, how
Hello.
are you?
I'm doing well. I'm excited to talk this episode. And I kind of just want to start the day. I'm wearing all black because this is Dan's Traitors funeral.
Yeah,
So I'm excited to talk about this episode.
I'm excited too, and I'm also excited because we have a very special guest, Chanelle. Chanelle's joining us. If you guys go deep in the Silent Podcast lore, you will know that this is the original crew from Fire and Pod. We discussed House of the Dragon together, so it's so exciting to get the crew back together. Chanelle, how are you?
I'm good. I'm happy to have the crew back. I'm super excited to talk about this episode. It was a wild one for sure.
Mm-hmm.
It definitely was. Chanelle, tell us, you haven't been on Talking Traitors with us yet, so tell us, what seasons have you watched? What's your history with the Traitors? Tell us everything.
Yeah, so I've watched literally I think I've watched every franchise at this point. I think the only one I haven't watched is the latest Australia season, but I just finished. Yeah, I just finished UK like recently. That one was wild too.
Yeah.
And I'm all caught up on this one obviously. But yeah, no, I've watched all of them.
That's amazing. I've seen them all too, except I think New Zealand. So what's your favorite? Who's your favorite host? That's what I want to know.
Oh
Yeah,
my
nice.
goodness. I think my favorite host is the US one.
Ooh,
Yeah,
okay.
I love his like fashion sense.
Yeah.
And I just love the way he says like traitor, like or like murder.
yes.
Yeah.
Or I can't even do it. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I
That's a
really
hot
love
take
the
on this
name.
podcast.
Oh, you
It
do
is.
like the UK one the best?
Yeah, I love Claudia.
Yeah.
Javier, you
Claudia's
like
Korean.
Korean, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would go Alan, then Claudia, then Corinne.
Mhm.
She also had like really awesome outfits, and
She
also
did.
being a
Yes.
Canadian, like I just
Mhm.
like
True, of
know her
course.
in everything at this point. So I'm just like, oh yeah, she's like an idol here, or like a
Yeah.
icon. Well, icon everywhere, but icon very much so in Canada.
Yeah.
That makes me
Love
happy
that.
that
I
Corinne is
know.
big in Canada
Oh
too.
yeah,
She
she's
deserves it. I
big.
loved her on Traitors Canada.
Oh yeah, especially I think they're supposed to do actually a French
Ooh.
traders. There was supposed to be like an English one and then a French one.
Oh
So I
wow.
don't know if that's still
Oh,
happening. That would be really cool to see that too.
that would be
Yeah.
really exciting.
Mhm.
Amazing. Well, is there anything you guys want to get off your chest before we start talking this episode, or should we jump right in?
No, I'm ready.
Let's get
Okay.
to it.
What I thought was interesting, and I want to hear both of your opinions, is that we open the episode and Alan is immediately confirming to us that there's no murder. Like we don't even see it play out in the turret. We're just hearing the faithfuls or the traitors attempted a murder, but Bergie had the shield, so they'll be shocked to see him walk in. I was surprised to see Alan just lay it out on the table for us. Were you guys surprised not to see like confirmation from the traitors that they were murdering Bergie?
Mm, yeah, kind of, but maybe just because I don't know, like maybe they were trying to do a suspense thing, but it didn't really
Yeah,
work out in the end. Because I had forgotten how the episode like had ended, but I was like, I'm
right.
pretty sure they've confirmed that they're going after him or whatever. That's the one thing about Traitors sometimes is the flow is a little bit weird
Yeah.
because you're like,
Yeah.
you already know like that person's gonna be murdered, but then they still do like the suspense thing, and it's like we already know, like just like speed it up. Just
Right.
like get to it. Like we already know. I just want to see the reaction of like the traitors that they messed up here, you know?
Totally.
Hmm.
Totally.
Yeah, I thought it was. I kind of wish they didn't do that. I wish we all would have learned at the
Yeah.
like the
Yeah.
breakfast that Bergie would have walked in at, and just it would have just helped a little bit with the excitement. I mean, Dan pretty much confirmed it at the end of the last episode, but you
Yeah.
still never know. Sometimes things change last minute, and it just would
Yeah.
have been more exciting to have it happen right at the end, or at the end
Yeah.
of. I mean,
Yeah, I agree. I kind of am like, oh, so they did end up murdering Bergie? Interesting. But yeah, that was different. I don't know that we've ever really seen that before. But at the breakfast, Parvati's nervous. She's the first group in, and she's just hoping Bergie does not have a shield. I mean, she was on to this whole plot by Peter at the end of the last episode. And she just wants the murder to go through. And Kate tells us too that everybody's kind of looking at her for some advice, and she's like, I don't know, just like pass the toast or whatever, which we love. Well, Kate's attitude.
Oh, she's my fave. I love Kate.
Yeah.
As soon as they were like, "Oh, they're bringing back someone," and I saw like just like a glimpse, and I was like, "That's freaking Kate. That better be Kate." Because I was so mad at first season the way that she was like treated through the whole season. Like
Yes,
at
me
first it
too.
was like, I get it, like she had the paper, so they think she's a traitor. But I'm like, but
Yeah.
now it just feels like bullying. Like you're a
Mhm.
cancer to the group. Like
I know
blah
that
blah.
was wild
Figure
that
it
Ari said
out.
that.
Yeah, but like Ari, so like whatever. He
I
like
know.
the temper tantrum at the end, whatever. Like it's very Ari style. I've never watched. I don't watch much Bachelor. Never watched his Bachelor. Like so, I was just like whatever. But anyways, I'm very happy to have her there because her sarcasm I love very much. So
Yeah. She does bring a good comedic vibe to the group, which I
Mhm.
I
yeah,
had said originally at the beginning about Deontay that he brings like a little bit of levity. He's funny. He makes us laugh,
yeah.
and I feel the same way about Kate.
Hmm.
Yeah, I feel like in terms of the game, I said it last week. I don't love that Kate's in the game at this point. She came in a little late for me,
Yeah,
but she did have a lot of good moments this season, and she was my favorite on season one in terms of like good TV. So this episode, she came back and she gave me a lot of good one-liners. Like even right in the beginning, Kate, like you were talking, Katie, she goes, "I thrive when I'm miserable," and I just started laughing at that because I was like,
Yeah.
good Kate energy. So
Yes.
I'm excited at least for her one-liners.
Yes, she's fun. She's fun to watch.
Yeah.
Dan comes in, and then we get a confessional from him, and he says that he mentions the Bergie murder is a huge risk and a gamble. Everyone's going to pin it on him, but if you want a huge reward, you have to take some risks. I think we've been saying this whole season that Dan, I think, is flying a little too close to the sun here, and just like murdering everyone who's kind of said his name, which we saw in Canada, and it ended up working out fine for Mike. But I don't, obviously the suspicion's been on Dan from the beginning, so. We'll see what happens at the end of this episode. But Sandra thinks John is going to be murdered because he's the most faithful of the faithfuls, and it would be the best move. And he's useless to the traitors. I actually love the way that Sandra's thinking versus the way that Dan is thinking. I think the way Sandra's thinking is the right way to play the game, where it ties, and I've said this so many times that it's probably annoying if you listen to every episode, but it just feels like when you murder someone that's tied to no one, it can't cause suspicion against anybody specific. So it just seems like the best way to go.
yeah, I agree. And the thing with I don't know if it's just like a Big Brother player thing.
Hmm.
Are like so used to like taking the big like swings all the time and just being like, they said my name, get rid of them, and it's over with. But it's like this is supposed to be like a secret thing, so you have to be like more strategic on who you're choosing so it doesn't come back to you. Where it's just like, oh, they said my name, they gotta go. It's
Yeah.
like you need to chill out. Like this, the same thing happened with
Mhm.
Cody. Like just
Yeah.
like chill out. Just chill out.
Yeah.
You don't have to be this mastermind. Just like you can be a mastermind. Like you look at the UK, like the UK traders or whatever, like they chilled.
Hmm.
They were good. Just you need to like chill. The whole point of being a trader is you have to lay low. And you don't have to take big swings. You take big swings when it makes sense and causes drama.
Yes.
Not, you know
And
what I mean?
confusion and
And
chaos, and it can't
confusion
be
and
tied
chaos.
directly to you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I
You
think
know,
Chanel, you make a great point in the
yeah.
sense that it does feel like a very big brother move. You want to get out that big target when you get the opportunity to. But yeah, like
Mhm.
you said, the Traders is a different game. And that's kind of how I feel Dan has been playing this entire game, very like low key, not saying any names, not saying anything. And like, you can keep your cards close to you in Big Brother for the beginning of the game, but you can't really do that in the Traders because right away that arises suspicion. So you made a great point there, Chanel, that yeah, Dan is kind of playing this game a bit closer to Big Brother than he should be, and he hasn't really adapted well to this format, I feel.
Yeah.
So
I
Yeah.
totally agree. I was going to say the same thing. Javier, we've talked a lot about how Dan does a lot of one-on-one conversations. We saw it a lot in this episode too, that he's like pulling people to the side and just saying like, I want you to listen to me. It's like he's campaigning,
mhm.
very Big Brother-esque. And you're right. And I think he said a lot too in his exit press that his style of gameplay did not translate well here because he's used to the very long pace or slow pace of Big Brother and the long playtime. And Suri has actually said the opposite, that this Big Brother was really hard for her because of how long and slow the pace of the game is. And this is why she was really good at Traitors, because Survivor is also a fast-paced game. So I think there's a lot to be said for like those skills translating across the board.
Totally.
Phaedra comes in, and what I loved is Sandra is celebrating. She's like, yes! She like gets up off the chair and celebrates, which was fun. I love how Sandra seems like she's like in with the housewives. That just makes me happy. It just makes me laugh. It seems like she was hanging out with Sheree later in the episode too, and the housewives are my girls, so I love that. But Phaedra tells us that she's frustrated because the decision to murder Bergie was not hers, and she didn't agree with it. But everybody's gonna die.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You can't like, keep your close allies the whole time. Like I know Sari kept like Stephanie around for a really long time. Like that
Mhm.
worked out for her though, because Stephanie was just like throwing all the wrong
Yeah.
like shade on Kate.
Yeah.
So it's just like, yeah, why not keep her around? She just keeps throwing shade on the person who's not a traitor anyway. But like, if it has Bergie's also like not really tied to anyone and
Yeah.
could easily go at any time. That whole group that's with Peter or whatever, any of them
Yeah.
could really just go at any time. So
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah. I totally agree.
Hmm.
Peter comes in, he's feeling super confident. He's hoping his trap works. He also thinks it's gonna be John who's murdered because he's useless to the traitors now. And Dan says out loud at the table that it's gonna be someone who voted for him because it'll be easy to pin on him. Do we feel like Dan should even be speaking this out loud or just like keep it to yourself? Say less a little bit.
Shut your mouth.
Yeah.
Literally.
What are we doing?
Just please stop. This is like when Cody came in and he was like, listen, the person who got murdered last night
Mhm.
told me before he
Yeah.
left. Like, just why do you have to
Why
say
are you
words?
saying
Mhm.
anything? Yeah.
Why words? Like, I don't understand.
Right.
Like Dan has been saying nothing all game, and then he says this, and it's just a terrible. It's kind of good for him that Bergie didn't die, just in the sense that if either way, I think Dan was gonna be screwed if that's what he was gonna say. If Bergie was gonna die, so it was just a terrible thing for Dan to say.
Yeah. I don't know. Dan speaks up at strange times and says very strange things. Trishelle and John walked in, and Peter is hyped because he knows his plan worked.
Mhm.
He's looking at Trishelle and he's like, game on, we got him. He's like celebrating before anybody even comes in the door. And I have to say, this is a really good plan by Peter. I'm impressed. I'm thoroughly impressed. And I'm impressed that they didn't fall for it. Parvati knew. Dan fell for it. So shout out to Peter.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I agree. Peter, like, I have some thoughts about Peter when we get towards the end.
Yes, me
Me
too.
too.
Mhm.
I
The
all
ego
I'm
is
gonna say for
egoing.
now- all I'm gonna say for now is that it is a great move. But
Yes.
by the end of this episode, I have different opinions on Peter, but we'll get to that later.
Yes,
Damn
I
bastards,
agree.
I swear.
I know, they really. Everybody's like, "Oh my god, Bergie, not my Bergalicious," and then we hear a knock on the door, and in walks Bergie. Peter's grinning. Bergie's like, "I got the shield. They gave me a death warrant." Do we know if a shield is successfully used if they actually get told that they're gonna be murdered?
I don't think so. I think they're just assuming, because I don't think he actually got the death warrant, right?
I
Because
don't know. Yeah, that's what I was and I wish if he did, they would have shown us, but I'm not
Mhm.
sure.
they would have shown us like, oh, you whatever. I don't think they actually know if they got a death
Yeah,
warrant or not, because oh, actually no, because the UK one, like a traitor got the shield and was like
right.
putting it off. But yeah, I don't know if we've ever seen yet someone trying to get hit with a shield. So
Yeah, I
maybe
don't
they
think we
do.
have.
Maybe they do and they just don't show it, but I don't know. That's a good question.
Yeah, I mean, maybe they told him just as he's, like, walking in the room, like, "You're the last
Yeah.
one," or "You were
Yeah,
supposed to be
maybe just
murdered." They're gonna be
assume.
surprised. Yeah,
Yeah, someone tweet Bergie and find out.
yes. Someone
You know,
who's up in Bergie's DMs,
Yeah.
let us know. I know you guys are out there.
he was on Love Island, so he probably has a few people
I
in
think
those
he has
DMs.
some stands, yeah.
Yeah. And also, I was also going to say, you guys bring up a good point. I wonder if they do get the death warrant because, they could have also played this as someone was recruited, because there are times where no one was murdered and someone was recruited. So it almost seems like they do know, because otherwise they could have, maybe Dan, Parv, and Phaedra could have played this off as like, oh, maybe no one was murdered. You know what I'm saying? So I think they probably do get a death warrant. It just would make sense, because otherwise you could play it off as someone was recruited, because there have been times where everyone comes to the breakfast,
Yes, that is true.
So
That is true, and that was actually, again, not to, light spoilers for UK, nothing crazy, but one of the traitors actually used that. He got the shield and then was like, "Oh,
Mhm.
we'll recruit tonight, but then we'll just pretend that I got murdered because I have the shield."
Mm.
So, that is a total possibility. Peter, Oh, I'm sorry. I did write actually. Phaedra in my notes says Bergie was like Christ. He rose again, which just really made me laugh. Her one-liners, they really just kill. She just kills me. She's
Everything
the
that comes out
star
of her
of this show.
mouth.
I
No,
know.
for real.
Yeah.
She's so-
But Peter has narrowed it down now to 3. CT, Parvati, and Dan. Sheree, it comes up in a confessional. She's just like, I have no idea what's going on. And that's just, I feel like
What?
they could play that confessional every episode and it would be applicable to poor Sheree, which I love. She makes me laugh.
I love Sheree. I also love, like, she's just like, what I love about Sheree, she's so into it. Like, she's so
Yes.
into like the competition. She's like so into it. But strategy wise, she's like, I don't know what the hell
No
is
idea.
going on, but I will make bird sounds. Like, I don't care.
Yes, exactly. I know she was beasting in the we'll get there when we talk about the
Yeah.
mission, but she was beasting in this mission too.
Mhm.
Love it. Peter comes clean. He explains his plan to everyone. And this part is so funny because this is when Sandra's like, who did you leak it to? She's like standing up out of her seat. She's like, what, Peter? Who'd you leak it? Which was so funny to me. But you know, he tells everybody, well, he doesn't actually say, he waits for them to speak up. CT is the first one to say, well, you told me. And Parv is like, well, you also told me and I didn't leak it to anybody. And Dan, you know, says the same thing. And, you know, Phaedra tells us in a confessional, Dan and Parvati fell into a huge trap, but her name hasn't been brought up today, so she feels safe. I don't know if she should feel that safe, Phaedra. We'll talk about it later. But
words right there.
I know. But Dan admits that he underestimated Peter. He's a bachelor. He's giving out roses, not game theory. And then Dan really needs to switch up the way he's playing this game. And this, I think, is the Achilles heel of Dan's entire game, is that he underestimated every single person who's not a social strategy reality competition player, which is a problem. Like, I wrote it actually at the end of my notes, but I guess we can kind of talk about it now since he says it in the confessional. But he underestimated Phaedra. He underestimated Peter. He said in some of his exit press that he put, I think maybe it was Sharon, he said that he put everybody who was not Sandra, Chanelle, Parvati. Who else? Who else was there? Sandra, Janelle, Parvati. He said one other person. He didn't say CT. And himself, I guess. There's got to be one other person. But he said he put them all in one bucket and everybody else in a separate bucket and looked at them totally differently. And I'm like, that's where you got, I think, because he seems to forget, I guess, that everybody that played Big Brother was just a rando off the street at one point.
Exactly.
Everybody that played Survivor was just a rando off the street at one point. Some people are good at it. Some people aren't good at it. But you know, you could play Big Brother once and be basically a civilian off the street and still, you know, I just think it's, yeah, you could still win. So like, I don't know, why classify people that way? It just seems interesting to me.
That's just ego.
Yeah.
That's like, you know, because he almost won twice. So he just thinks that he's like this mastermind who could do anything. So he's like, oh, I need to find like-minded people or whatever. But like the thing about like with like Janelle is like, I guess good at competitions or whatever, but she's like she was like super selfish in this one. So it's not you're supposed to align yourself with someone who's like so selfish in this game.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Totally. She was good. Well, I think she came off. I was surprised that she got voted out at the banishment because to me, she was a total utter faithful. All she was doing was trying to find traitors, which doesn't seem like every other person is trying to do. But yeah, I don't know. It is interesting to me. But yes, she is selfish and it's not the best person to be aligned with for sure.
Yeah.
Anything else about the breakfast before we move on to pre-mission?
I just thought it was funny. We get Phaedra talking about the meat again. Like,
oh my god, she was like, I'm gonna cut this.
Like, where's my meat again? Yeah. She's just something. I just really love Phaedra.
She's so much.
I love watching it on the TV. Like, it's just give me more. The more Phaedra, the better. Like, she's just everything she says. I'm just eating it up. So
me too.
And she's like that on Housewives too. Like she's funny all the time. Like she's never not funny.
Her sound bites are always the best.
Oh my god. Yeah. Her and Nene. I want to see Nene on the show next season.
I was saying I would love Nene.
Nene would be wild. I would love it.
Because she would not care.
No, she would not care. It would be amazing. And she's played The Apprentice before, so she has some gaming experience. Yeah. So before the mission, Peter says that Dan and Parv were squirming and uncomfortable, but CT had no reaction at all. So he believes that CT is now a traitor and it's between Dan and Parv. Good read by Peter.
Mhm.
And then we see him in, I guess, like, I don't know what that area is. It's like the foyer. I don't know how to say that word, but and he's chatting with MJ and Phaedra, and he's saying that Parvati can't even look at him. And Phaedra's like, well, yeah, her name's been out, but it just kind of like goes away, which is we keep hearing, but we're not really seeing. So this is really the first episode that we're really seeing people say
Mhm.
Parv's name. And he says to Phaedra, like, did anyone leak the convo to you? And she's like, never. And she does put heat on Parvati's name here, I think. And I really like the way that she played this. What did you guys think?
Yeah, I agree. I think she's just like she's playing like the calm, cool, collected kind of
Yeah.
game, just like, oh yeah, like just chatting with everyone. She has that like southern charm. She's just like,
Mhm.
making friends with everyone. Like you wouldn't think her and Burgerlicious were like gonna hang or whatever.
I
So
know.
yeah, she's just like the way she just like navigates through everything. She's just like slipping in, the other trader's name like so casually. Like, yeah, their name comes up once in a while, like, just so casually. Like she doesn't the thing about some traders is that they try so hard to not put the other traders'
Yeah,
names in their mouths, but it's like at the end of the day, you protecting one makes you look like one. So she's like, "Well, if it's coming up, like I'm not there nothing I can
right.
do about that, you know
Yeah,
what
like
I
she won't
mean?
start it, but she won't, shy away from the discussion if she
Yeah,
has to.
exactly, like,
Yeah.
she's not gonna be the one throwing it out, for sure, but she
Mhm.
she will she's like, "Yeah, well, not talking about me, so moving on to the next one."
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think we talked about it, but like Phaedra's social game has been amazing so far, and because she's just so good at these conversations and building relationships
Mhm.
with like, everyone in the
Mhm.
house. Um, and yeah, I think it wasn't until this episode where I finally got a little scared for Phaedra. But up until this
Yeah.
point in the episode, I was very excited to see the way Phaedra was handling all this heat that's going on to Parv and Dan. She's really acting unfazed. She's not letting it, because some traders might get caught up in it. Like, let's say someone in, like, for example, in the US version, like someone like Christian would not be able to like I feel like when he was a trader, he wouldn't have been able to keep his self as controlled as Phaedra's doing when all the other traders are being named. So I
Yeah.
just really think Phaedra's doing a really good job at that.
Yeah. Well, I think the key and how we've seen how other traders be successful is really convincing themselves that they are a faithful when they're talking to other faithfuls instead of like trying to big brain it and game too hard. Like it just feels like just fit in with everybody, do what everybody else is doing, to convince yourself that you are a faithful in those moments. And maybe not 9 times out of 10, but like 7 times out of 10, you'll probably be fine. And I think Phaedra does that really, really well.
Yep.
Um, we do see Parvati and Peter go off into the kitchen, and they have a little conversation. And Parvati gets a little bit on the defensive here, which I think is interesting. And then she starts accusing Peter, and she's just like, "Well, how are you not a traitor?" And he's like, "I think it's pretty clear that I'm a faithful." Which is true. I mean, at this point, it's clear. He wouldn't hatch this whole plan if he were actually a traitor. That would be
Yeah.
kind of ridiculous. And he's like, "Nobody has suspicions on me." And he's like, "I could say the same to you. Like, how come you're not a traitor?" And she's like, "Well, because I can convince myself that I'm not a traitor the same way you can convince yourself you're not a traitor." And she really has no answer. And he calls her on that. And he's like, "You're really
Mhm.
not giving me. I'm trying to work with you here, and you're giving me nothing."
She's
What did
so
you
trapped.
think of this? Yeah. What did you think about the work from Parv here?
I think that Peter was eating her up this conversation,
Mhm. Me
unfortunately.
me too.
It's kind of the whole like you cannot use that argument that I can say I'm a traitor and I can also say I'm a faithful, because that just argument does not hold up, because you need to, unfortunately you do need to come with some either proof that someone else is a traitor, or proof or solid proof that you're not a traitor, if that makes sense, as opposed to saying I'm not a traitor because you can also say the same thing. Like, her argument just had no solid ground. So it was just Peter was just not buying any of it.
Right.
No, I think the better way she could have played it, because there's like 3 people in the conversation, you like leak the conversation. They could be like your reaction, blah blah blah, and it's like, well, because they were the last person in, I just assumed they were murdered, and
Yeah.
then they appeared out of nowhere. You had just told me that you had the shield, so I just assumed that they were going to be dead. I think that was a good reaction from anyone else, and I'm one of the only 3 from the conversation. So like, just like play it
Yeah.
off like you're just dumb, like you just like not dumb, but you're just like shocked because if all signs pointed to him being dead because he was the last person, but you're just like defend, 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 defend,
Mhm.
defend. That's like so traitor. Like that,
Right.
because you're like, I'm cornered at this point. But it's just like, just play it off like you're a faithful. Just be like, I was just shocked he was the last person in. I thought he was
Yeah.
dead. I thought he was
and
dead.
you
You told me he was gonna be dead.
I like what you said too, Chanelle, about just being like,
Yeah.
well, you told me you had the shield, so I'm confused because why would
Yeah.
you lie to me about it? If like, obviously, okay, you
Exactly.
suspect it, but that's like weird behavior from you. But she didn't flip it. She just kind of was like, well, I'm 100% convinced I'm a faithful, just like you're 100% convinced you're a faithful. I'm like, that's a non-argument that you're giving here.
Yeah.
We see him also have a one-on-one conversation with Dan. Dan's favorite type of conversation is a one-on-one conversation in this game. And he's trying to take control of the ship here, he tells us, and he says, he's like, with us, like, what went wrong? What went wrong with us? And Peter's like, you've always been in my top 3. I don't think it's anything that you could have done. Like, you've always been there. And he's confident that it's one of you guys because of the leak. And Dan is like, he says, promise me when I say I'm faithful, you don't take it to heart, which I don't really know what he was trying to say here. But this is the thing that Dan has been doing where he's like, listen, guys, I won't take it personally that you voted for me. Don't worry about it. Or he'll say like, I know you said my name, but like, we're cool. Don't worry. And it's like, no one's asking if we're cool. This is a game where you have to say people's names. You have to vote for people. You have to play the game. I just think I just think this approach from Dan is very odd because it's like, yeah, no one assumed you were going to take it seriously. It's a game.
Yeah, no, again, it's the one-on-one conversations is also, again, a Big Brother thing. And it's like, please stop.
Yeah, I know. This has been driving me crazy since the first episode, Chanelle. It's just been constant one-on-ones with Dan. It's driving me crazy.
I was like, people are saying you're quiet. So what you need to do is get in a room with people where a bunch of them see you talking. And it doesn't even have to be like big conversations. It just has to be like, yeah, you're right. Oh my gosh, I didn't even think about it. Did you think about this? Just like talk. Just talk with people in the room, not one at a time, because that looks sneaky when you're doing one at a time. You're not trying to do weird alliance like things. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, sometimes you're trying to save your butt, but it's just like, this is why you're in trouble in the first place, is because you're not talking enough. And then here you go having personal conversations and weird personal conversations about this thing. So it's just, I don't know. I get so mad. I was like, at one point, I'm like, I like Big Brother, but I swear to God, if they bring any more Big Brother players, I might lose my mind. Because what are y'all doing?
All flopped, honestly.
Yeah, y'all flop. So, but even like the Canadian one, I was like, oh my God, enough.
Yeah, I know. I know.
Enough.
I know. I think Kevin in Canada had a little bit of Janelle. They were a little similar.
Yes.
Yeah. Flamed out a little too soon. But he was fun to watch. She was fun to watch too. At least they gave us something.
I will say they were entertaining. It's just like I think we've seen so many iterations of Traitors at this point, and they should have too. Because there's so many that were out that you should just know, like, this is not the route. At all.
I did hear Tamara actually say in I think the second episode of our podcast, maybe I didn't listen to the whole thing, but she did tell Janelle that she watched the first season of UK, which I thought was interesting. I was like, oh, okay, so the housewives are doing their homework, which was great because that was a really great season. One of the top two. I'm debating between UK 1 and 2, which one's the best, but they're both great.
I really like 2. I really liked
2 was really good.
Yeah,
2 was really good. Yeah, so anyway, but we go to the mission. Basically this mission is similar to the one they had last year where they just had to like carry stuff up a hill. But this one is they have to get pieces of a catapult and then build it at the top of the hill and fire a golden cannonball out of the catapult and hit a target. So they're going up this huge hill, a very a treacherous journey, we can say, and they have to pick all the pieces up on the way. This actually looks very difficult and not a mission I would want to participate in. Like crossing that river was a lot. This was also like the biggest comedic relief of the episode to me was them crossing this river because we saw so many good moments. But there are shields, so there are ammo boxes spread out across the course or the route, and each person who wants a shield gets to pick one up. And then at the end, they have to be the ones that actually put them on this, I guess, a pedestal or whatever, to actually be able to compete for the shield. But there's only one shield. So if they don't do it in time, they get no money and they get no shields. But don't worry, they do it in time and they do get a shield. So we'll talk through it. But What did you guys think about this mission?
So first of all, I thought this mission had like a lot of moving parts, both
Yes, it
literally
did.
and physically. So
Yes.
I was just like, okay, what's going on here? Like for some
Mhm.
reason, I was not really following the mission. I don't know if it was
Yeah.
the mission structure or it was also the fact that I was just so excited for the roundtable, knowing what was to come,
Yeah.
given that I knew Dan had some plot. So I really was excited to see the roundtable. So I think it was a mixture of I felt the mission was a little like too convoluted, too many moving things going on, and also my excitement for the roundtable was like this was probably the first mission this season because I feel like I've been enjoying the missions. This
Yeah.
was the first one I was like, let's wrap it up. Like
Yeah.
let's see what happens. I want to get to this
Me too.
roundtable. I need to see what Dan has in store for me. Like this, I'm more excited for the roundtable than I am for this mission. So it was kind of like speeding. This was like first mission where I was like literally speeding up, like, all right, let's go. So
Yeah.
I was exhausted for them. I was
Oh my
exhausted
God.
watching it. I was like, and then there's the shields all over the place, and I'm just like, everyone's like grabbing shield ammo and whatever.
yeah.
It was like, yeah, I was like, can we just get this done with? And also, if you watch the UK traders, like most of the challenges have been like
Yeah, they're the
mirroring each
same.
other, and I was
Yeah.
like, okay, I saw this. Like,
Yes.
I'm good. I just want to get to. I was like, just like Javier, I was like, I just want to get to the round table. Like, I can
Yeah.
care
Literally.
less about who gets a shield right now.
I will say when I watched this in the UK, I completely zoned out. And the first time I watched it, I zoned out. So I'm
Mhm.
glad, obviously, I rewatched the episode before we podcast. Just I watch it once for fun and then once to take
Mhm.
notes. And I was like, oh, okay, so this was what they did. Because both times I watched it, I did not pay any attention to it. But we got some good moments here. We got some CT. And if you're a stan or a shipper of CT and Phaedra, you got some tidbits here. He's helping her across the thing. She's holding on to him. They're holding hands,
Mhm.
which I love. That's her castle daddy. The other thing I really loved about this was I don't remember who it was, but it was like Sandra, it was Sheree. Oh, Sandra, Sheree, and Parvati. I wrote it down. And they're like crossing the river together and they're just screaming, they're falling. I don't know. That was just really funny to me that the three of them were like, just falling in the water. It really made me laugh. But the CT and Phaedra stuff, he was helping her across, then they were holding hands, walking
I
up.
love this
Loved it.
too.
Loved it. Do we think there's anything there? I don't know.
No, I
I don't
think
think
Phaedra's
there is.
just like really flirty. They're both
I
like
wished.
flirty or whatever, but she's always just like flirty
Yes.
and stuff. But I think I saw like a TikTok where she was like, "Yeah, he's like my castle
She said it on Watch What
daddy
Happens
or
Live.
something." Or what? Yeah, that's what it was. It's
Yes.
like so funny. I think CT's just like a nice, like I
Yeah.
think CT
He's a
has
teddy
like
bear.
that like tough guy exterior, but like if you've watched, like I didn't really. It's funny because I didn't really watch a lot of the challenge before, but I did know like how nice he was to. Was it Demi or whatever her name was? When she had
Oh,
cancer and stuff.
DM.
DM. Yeah,
Yeah.
he was really nice to her and like really kind and stuff. And
Yeah.
like, you realize he's just like a nice person. He just has that like tough exterior or whatever. So
Mhm.
it's cute.
Yeah. Yeah, it is cute. He's the best. I love him. Peter is running for the shield. Trishelle also goes for the shield. She takes down Kevin in the river, which I thought was pretty funny.
That was funny.
Yeah, he was like, seriously? And she's like, I'm getting it. Sorry. And she just like ditched him. He fell. And she gets it. Peter, same thing. He's running for the shield. As he should. I do think he should get the shield in this mission, but he is laying it on really thick throughout the rest of the episode about like, this is my last meal. But we'll get to it. Sheree gets a shield and she's picking up the box and she also has a bag on her back and she's beasting and everyone's like, you're carrying both? And if you watch Real Housewives of Atlanta, Sheree is a workout queen. Like she's a beast. I would love to watch her on the challenge, actually. I think she would crush it. I don't know that she's in the demographic at this point, which, like, to be fair, Johnny Bananas and CT are also, well, in their 40s. I don't know how old Sheree is off the top of my head, but I would like to see it. I'm just saying. If there's
older challenge,
yeah,
season, 40 and up.
Yeah, exactly.
40 and up challenge. I like.
I would honestly give it to us.
The challenge all stars, they got some older. Like
I was gonna say there are older.
Cyrus is older.
Yeah, people pushing their 40s, upper 40s in the
yeah.
challenge all stars.
For sure, she could fit in.
True.
Then I just wrote too in my notes that like there's just so many scenes of these men pulling the sled and like pulling with all their might. It just really, I don't know, it just made me laugh. But then I was also like, okay, I'm into it. I can watch these men pull the shield. I don't know. I was like, they look pretty good. I'm not mad about this. CT specifically. But then they get up to this huge catapult and it's comically large. That thing is comically large.
This was absurd that they had to take that giant. That's when I was like, what is this challenge? You're making these people carry this massive catapult.
They
That's
100%
when I really
extended
was like,
it. They had to have extended the time because there's no way they did that in however much time they had. I was like, there is no way.
I think they had an hour to do everything.
Yeah, they had an hour.
The river. No, there's no way. I agree with you. No, they could not have done that in an hour.
No way. Also, like, show us how they lifted the catapult up and put it on that sled. I want to see how they did it because I don't think we saw it, and I want to see it. But they're all it's more pulling and pushing. They eventually get up. I think Sandra got a shield as well, and so did Parv. And Sandra is also screaming, Alan, we're coming, Alan, which I don't know why Sandra's making me laugh so much this episode, but she really is killing me. Just the way that she just like yells things and her voice is funny to me. I don't know, like, I don't know if it's her braces or what, but like, it just makes her voice funny. Not like I'm making fun of her, but it just like brings me joy.
It's so different than what her normal voice is.
Yes, exactly. It's something different.
I was just like, I'm like, what is Sandra's voice this season? And I saw the braces. I was like, oh, okay.
I know. I love her. And like, shout out to her and her adult voices. I support it. I'm totally not making fun.
Oh man, get your teeth in order. I love it.
Yeah, I could use some adult braces.
Me too.
I could go for them. I'm sure people on YouTube would agree. Peter goes there. He's reading instructions on how to build it. CT's cranking the gear. And then John gets to launch the ball. John is quickly emerging as one of my favorites on this season. What about you guys?
I was like, who the hell is this
random
man? And I just see people all over the internet like, why the hell is the Speaker of the House here? And I'm just like, who is this? But I had like, we were watching, I think, the first episode or the second episode, and I had someone in the UK just like watching it with us. And I was like, what's up with this dude? Like, is he, because a lot of like politicians are just like these like shady people. And he was like, oh, he makes me laugh. Like, he's always made me laugh. He was so funny when he was a speaker. And I'm just like seeing it now. Like, I'm like, he's so quick and just like really funny. So I'm like really enjoying him in the season. I'm happy he's here. I'm surprised they didn't put him on the UK, but I feel like the UK, they don't do celebrities.
Yeah,
it's like
no
literal normies. Like, they
which
don't
I love, and they deliver hard.
Yeah, they do. So that's why I was like, look how good. Like, I don't know who does the casting of UK, but they freaking
incredible. They nail it.
Incredible. So like, anyways, I'm enjoying him so much.
Yeah, he's funny.
I feel like up until this episode, I kind of was in the same boat as like as Alan, the host. Like, I was kind of laughing at John. But then at the round table, he gave me some great moment. We got a really good moment when we get to the round table with John. So now I'm actually like looking at John a bit more as like, okay, John is actually here to play a game and not just be the comedic relief. Come on, John. So I'm pleasantly surprised by him. I'll say that much.
Me too. I don't know anything about this man's politics, by the way. I have not looked it up. So hopefully, he's not problematic, but he's
fine.
Great. Even better. So they build it maybe in 60 minutes, maybe longer. We don't really know. I assume it's probably a little longer, but they let them do it. And then they have to, there actually is a funny moment before they build, as they're building the thing, is the catapult, is when they're all putting their shield boxes down on that platform. And Kate is holding one, because some of the women are holding all the boxes and the bags on like a separate thing while the men pull the catapult up. And so she has one of the shield boxes, even though she didn't pick it up. But whoever puts it down on the thing is the one that fights for the shield or competes for the shield. It's not the person that picked it up. So she has Peter's shield, and she's just standing there, like, and she's deciding. And Alan's like, well, what are you going to do? And she's like, I don't know. It's just the way that they were talking to each other made me really laugh, because he just like obviously knows her. He obviously thinks she's funny. She really screwed up the last mission that they had to walk up the hill where she was like throwing stuff. And she's just like, I don't know. And he's like, well, are you going to keep it for yourself, or are you going to give it to someone? Who do you think deserves it? And she's like, no one. And then she ends up just putting it on the ground. Yeah, this is funny. And Peter's like, Kate better not take my shield. Are you kidding me? I'm like, okay, relax.
Well, why did you leave it there? That's
maybe you shouldn't have left it.
Error.
Exactly. I kind of wish she did it.
I know, me too.
I agree. That would have been great TV, just to see Peter so mad at Kate.
Oh my God. It would have bing so good.
It was funny also because Kate goes, I think Kate said something along the lines like, it feels desperate to even want this.
Yes, she did.
I was like, this is just so quintessential Kate. Just like, I don't really care. Like, why
so nonchalant.
Yeah, exactly. So.
She just does not care.
It was a very good Kate moment for me.
Yeah, that was great. And it was a good Alan moment. Honestly, he's winning me over. He hasn't been my favorite, but each episode I'm liking Alan more and more.
I agree. This season he's had a lot of good moments so far.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think it's the cast. The first
Yeah.
season's cast was like a little rough. Like even the reality people, they were great, but like not the best. But this season it's like everybody's giving us something and he has
Yeah,
more to play off
exactly.
of. So it's good.
Yeah, I'm glad they switched it to all like I feel like for the States, it only works if
What
it's like
yeah.
celebrity, if it's like reality people for some reason, it only
Yeah.
works that way. I don't know, maybe because the non-celebrity cast was just so terrible.
So
It was
bad.
just
They were
so
so bad.
bad. It was comical about how bad it was, you know?
Yes.
So maybe it just worked. Maybe they just need to do, if they don't do a celebrity one, they need to just do like a more normal one. But I feel like in the States, like everyone idolizes like reality TV
Yeah.
people. So it just makes sense for it to be all celebrities, I guess. But UK,
Yeah.
that's why I was like, I like watching US for that. And then the UK just
Yes.
for like,
It gives a perfect balance. Like we get
does.
it's like a different show. It's the same game, but it's just like a different show.
It's totally different.
yeah.
And it's same place, same competitions, but it's
yeah,
totally different.
totally different.
Totally
Yeah.
different vibe.
If you want to see like hard gaming, Javier, watch the UK. If you want
I
like
need to get
what we're
into
getting here, UK is truly it's the best.
It's the best one.
Yes, top tier Traitors.
Yeah.
So they launch the ball. John launches the ball. He gets it. He hits the target. He's jumping up and down. He's so excited. And he says to pull the catapult is the single most I'm not going to do an English accent. Is the most exciting moment of the game. And he's on cloud 9 and he's like sweating through his sweatshirt, jumping up. They're all hugging him. This just really made me laugh from John. So shout out to you, John. So they win the 20K. They fight for the shield. They each have to launch their own individual ball. And we don't need to go over everybody's placement. Sheree gets it. Sheree wins. Who knew?
I mean, honestly, of the 5 people, Sheree probably needs to delete.
Exactly. I agree.
I really feel like Sheree's gonna end up at the end and somehow win this show after doing like.
If I'm a
No
traitor,
thanks to Sheree,
I'm
listen.
taking Sheree to the end. There's
I
no
like
way I'm
Sheree.
murdering Sheree.
Yeah, like I like Sheree, but like she's gonna make it to the end, I feel, and not have done anything and not have any clue what's going on. And like power to her. Like if that's what it takes to win, it is what it is.
Exactly.
Exactly. You could get to the end and like not even vote the right way and still happen to win. So like do what you're doing. It's fine. Maybe you'll take it. She probably could use the money knowing her history on Real Housewives. So it's all good.
She's got to pay for She by Sheree, just never launching ever.
Yes,
you know?
exactly. She by Shein. So post mission, they're in the car. Kate in the car says that she's more certain about Parvati than Dan, but she calls her poverty, which I'm like, we got to stop calling poverty. So many people have done it this season. I feel really bad for her.
I do.
Yeah, that's rough.
Time.
You do.
I can't pronounce names, and hers is like some weird. It's like I'm like Havarti, poverty. What I'm like, I keep saying different weird names all the time. But
you do have to like put your
Yeah.
mouth in like a Parvati. Like you just have to like really
Parvati,
think
yeah,
about
exactly.
it. Yeah.
Exactly.
Kevin in the other car asks if Dan is still on the radar, but then he's like, but he hasn't even done anything. And I'm like, Kevin, you just got shut up, Kevin. Shut up, Kevin.
God. Okay, but can we talk about, you were like, yeah, he probably needs a shield, or no, you didn't know, it was Peter needed a shield.
Yeah,
and Kevin was like, they're like,
oh yeah, it's a
shield, and he's like, yeah, I do. I was like, no, you don't.
No
You're
one's murdering you, Kevin.
I was like, you are so not here. Like, no, like they're gonna keep you around just because you have no idea what's going on. Like you and Sheree are going to the end, just so you know.
Yes, 1,000%. Javier, I know you watched Bling Empire. Is this quintessential Kevin?
He's
giving us Kevin.
Kevin, just vibing.
Yep.
The one brain cell will try to kick in maybe eventually, but he's a pretty face on Bling Empire, and that's the vibe he's giving on this show.
Yes. In the other car, Dan and Parvati are in the car with Peter. Thanks, production. And Dan is like, I know I'm under fire. Let the chips fall where they may. And Peter's just like, can I just say, like, Dan and Parv, will you guys just make my murder painless tonight? This is where I'm getting annoyed now. I'm like, okay, stop, enough. And they're like, why are you asking us? What are you asking us? And he's just like, I just know, whatever. And we get to the house, and then Peter immediately is eating his food, and then he's just like, it's my last meal, guys. And I'm like, okay. Okay, you're like really doing too much right now for me, Peter.
Yeah,
You
he's
had
starting to
me,
get
and now
bad.
you lost me.
He's really starting to annoy me. Like,
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, chill out.
Yeah. Well, he's only gonna get more annoying because he starts talking to Bergie and his crew in that room. I think it's a library maybe, and Parvati starts to walk in and he closes the door, and I'm just like,
Oh
"You
my
can't do that, bro.
god.
Come on.
No.
I
What are we
hate.
doing?"
That
Yeah.
little clique's kind of annoying, except John.
Yes.
But the rest of them are really annoying.
Yes, and they get even more annoying by the end of the episode.
Mhm.
And I'm liking Bergie, but I'm just like, "Okay, we don't have to do all this." Um But Parvati just says Parvati's pissed, and she's like, "I don't like the game that Peter's playing. He's playing holier than thou, like he's the leader of all the faithfuls," and she wants to break up that group. And I really do think Peter is doing a big disservice to everybody around him for the traitors.
Mhm.
Whether they murder him or not, they're gonna go after that group of traitor
Yeah.
hunter
Mhm.
alliance. And they're really not slick at all.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I would if I was the traders, I'd just be like picking
I'd be
them off
taking 'em,
one by
yeah,
one.
exactly, one by one.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And anybody, any traitor would feel that way. So that again, like that doesn't really tie to a specific person. It's just like, okay, well, clearly you guys gotta go. Um, Everyone is saying that Parv is 100% a traitor. And even if it's not Dan, it's definitely Parv. So it seems like Parvati has more heat on her than Dan. Which kind of goes with the theme of us hearing maybe off camera or in some of the exit press that everybody really thought or like these flippant comments like Phaedra saying everybody thinks you're a traitor, but us not seeing that. It sounds like everybody really does actually think Parv's a
No,
traitor, and this
yeah.
is just the confirmation they needed. But not as much heat to Dan. But he does go to get her. She's in the room now, and she's sitting next to Bergie, and she's like, "So what's the plan for tonight?" And Bergie's just like, "Well, Dan's name is out there," and she's like, "Okay." And mine is too, right? That's, like, what you're not saying. He's like, "Yeah, that's not what that's what I'm not saying." And I'm like, "Oh my god, Bergie,
Jesus
you get it
Christ.
together. Get it together."
Flying too close to the sun, that's what's happening.
Yeah. Yep. Totally. Um, so Parv is on the defense, and she's like, "It's concerning about the alliance, and that you're all locked in to vote with each other." And Sandra says, to us in a confessional, like, Parvati's really good at deceiving and lying, but everybody's already onto her at this point. So sounds like Sandra's even gonna cut her losses here. And she
Mhm.
might not be the first one, obviously, to go for Parv, but she'll go in on it. She's not gonna protect her, which I think we knew.
Yeah.
Um, John asks her what her plan is for the night, and she says she's been trusting Dan, but she can't really trust anyone 100%. I don't love that she said Dan here. I'm like, that's the
Yeah.
other person that everybody thinks is a traitor. Why are you saying you trust him 100%?
Yeah, I feel like she's just, like, flailing. Like,
Yeah, she
she
is.
doesn't know how to handle this game at all, like, her and Dan, like, I knew as soon as they were trying to, like, throw Phaedra in, like, right at the beginning, it's like, why, like, just play it cool. Just play it cool.
Yeah,
Like, they're both just, like, really intense players, and that's why Dan
yeah,
wanted her because 'cause they're, like, very similar, but it's like, it's only to your detriment at this point. Just, like,
Mhm.
chill out.
yeah. Yes,
Play a Surrey game, like, please.
yes.
It's a mess. She has no idea what to do at this point.
Yeah, I feel like when you are 2, like, mega gamers who are super
Yes.
intense together, it's not really a good mix because that's gonna come off super suspicious to people. Like, I think
Yes.
as the traders, you just need a better, well-rounded mix where people are gonna complement each other. Like, I feel like Phaedra is great because it sounds like she's game playing with people. She has a great social game, she's smart, but she's not, like, super intense. And, like, maybe her and Dan could have worked really well together if he listened. Not I'm not saying that he didn't listen to her, we don't really know either way if he did or didn't, or if she was coming up with ideas, but if she was and Dan maybe listened to her and then didn't have, like, the intensity of Parvati, maybe he could have flourished a little bit more, but I feel like he probably got too in the
Yeah.
game with Parvati, and
Mhm.
it's gonna take them both down, I think.
I
Yes.
think watching like Dan and Parvati play this game, it's starting to make me think that when you come from these social reality TV shows, you kind of come with I feel like Dan and Parvati have this idea that they have to play like a near flawless game, or they have
Yeah.
to come in to be this like intense, amazing gamer. And I think for a game like the Traitors, when you are a traitor, it's not a good way to play. Or even when you're faithful, we saw it on Big Brother Canada with Kevin. Like, I thought Kevin was playing a good game, but he was also very intense as a faithful, and that's kind of what led to his downfall. So I feel like when you come from these shows, you kind of come with that weight on your shoulders in the sense that you feel like you really have to make these big moves and you have to be so good at the game, as opposed to when you're someone like Phaedra, who has no reputation to be this amazing social strategist. When you have people like Dan thinking that you're going to be terrible at the game just because you've never played these kind of social strategy games, it might make it a little bit easier to play the game of the Traitors as a traitor. And I think we saw that again, because the only other one I've seen in Canada, we saw that a little bit in Canada, because I think that's why Mike was so successful. Because he didn't have that thing that Cruzy and like a Kevin, even though Kevin wasn't a traitor, you know what I'm saying? That like you need to feel like you have to live up to a certain standard because you're from these social reality shows. So I think that's what I've been kind of, I haven't seen all the other versions, but from watching these with the celebrities, that's kind of the vibe I'm getting from these players.
Yeah, and I think that's why Sari actually did so well, to not to say, but I just don't think she's as much of like a gamer. Like we saw on Big Brother, she's very social. She has a really good social game. She makes really good connections with people, and that's kind of how she gets them to, come under her wing and trust her, which is exactly what she did on the Traitors, with Andy and, to a certain extent Quentin, and the others. So, I think the social part of it versus the gamer part of it is arguably much more important in the Traitors, because ultimately you just really want people to trust you. And if you're scheming, they're not going to trust you. Or if it seems like you're scheming, they're not going to trust you, and they'll go on anything that they have. I do think Kuzi was a very good traitor, actually, up until she wasn't. Like, I think she did a really good job. Unfortunately, she got bested by Mike, which I hate to say out loud, but what can you do? What can you do?
About that.
Yeah. So, Dan pulls Peter aside. He also pulls a few other people aside. I think CT, he pulls Trishelle, which I'm like, dude, I can't with these one-on-ones anymore. I really can't. Luckily, we don't have to anymore because of what happens. But he's like, I just want to have an open ear at the round table. Just hear me out. Because I'm 100% on one person, and I just want you to hear my arguments. And Peter's like, you don't want to tell me now? You want to wait till the round table? He's like, no, I want to wait till the round table. And I'm like, this is truly the most annoying thing about Dan, is that you just say a name. Just say a name. This is why you come off so shady. But he says the same thing to Trishelle, and he says the same thing to CT. And CT says, I'll be open-minded. I just do not like this gameplay from Dan. It's like, your name is out there. You don't need to pull people aside. Just be a part of the conversations. When everybody's congregating, get into it and just throw another theory out there, or just be like, oh, this thing was weird that I saw. Or like, don't you think maybe have a conversation without Peter involved and say, don't you think it's weird that Peter like came up with this whole scheme? Like, that's a little traitorous, don't you think? And try and flip it back on him. But he just loves having these one-on-one meetings. It drives me crazy.
Yeah, it's just, I think what makes a good traitor are the people who can kind of just like seep like information into people slowly, like just be like, put stuff out into the wind, like, oh, that, like you said, like, oh, that was like a little weird that Peter did that. Like, you think that's like real? You think that's true? And then just kind of like spread it around.
Yeah.
Or whatever, instead of just like, I don't know, playing it hard like that, doing the one-on-ones or whatever, like hiding, keeping your cards close to your chest. Again, very, very Big Brother.
I think another thing that I've like been realizing with someone like the way Dan is playing this game, with all his one-on-ones, etc. And maybe they haven't showed this, but I feel like Dan has just been lacking. He's never really in the big groups, and even when talking about non-game stuff, the best way to build bonds with people is when you don't talk game, and we've never seen that from Dan. As opposed to when we're talking about Phaedra, we've seen Phaedra so often just be in a group with people and just talk about anything and just build bonds with people outside of game talk, if that makes sense. And I feel like we haven't seen that from Dan, and I think that's also been a detriment to his game, because I don't even know if these people kind of even like Dan. Like, not to say they dislike him, but you don't develop an affinity for people if you don't get to know them at all. As opposed to when Phaedra and Bergie, Phaedra and CT, like just talking to people outside of the game level will just build a better relationship as them as well. And we haven't seen that from Dan either, which I think has been another thing that's been hurting his game.
I don't see Sandra getting up and cheering when Dan walks in the room, but I see Sandra getting up and cheering when Phaedra walks in the room, and they didn't know each other. I totally agree. I did hear Tamara again on her podcast say that her and Dan were really close, which I thought was interesting because we really didn't see that. But I'm sure he has bonds with people. Like, we saw him talking to Trishelle, we saw him talking to CT. Those must be the people he thought he could trust. But I totally agree. Like, I want to see him integrate more with the people and like build the bonds. Obviously, we didn't see that, unfortunately. But yeah,
That's
I
funny
don't
that
know.
she said they were close because he murdered her very
Yeah,
early. So,
I
like,
know.
was it
I
that
know.
close? Because if it's Dan, Dan's gonna keep his players
Hmm.
with him. So I don't know if they're that. I don't know if you're that close,
Well,
Gemma.
she actually talked about that on the podcast with Janelle because she had only just found out that Phaedra was really behind the murder. She
Mhm.
thought it was Dan the whole time, and she was just like, I thought Dan and I were really close and that we could trust each other. And I had just talked to him the night before and said, let's do this. We can play together. And then she got murdered. So she was confused about why Dan would do that. But it really was Phaedra who kind of masterminded it, I guess, to throw the scent off of her.
It made sense for her to do a
Yeah.
housewife there. Like when they were
Yes.
like deliberating, I'm like, she has to do a housewife now. Like
Yeah. Yes. Absolutely.
to make
Absolutely.
sense. Yeah.
Totally. Um, we get to the round table and we get the song, and we did have a comment on our video from last week that someone was upset with me that I didn't like the song and that I was using cough drop. So I apologize to that person. I had a cold. And I'm sorry that it was annoying. But listen, the song is great. It's a beautiful song. I don't hate the song. I just want a little bit of a variety because Chanel, as you know, in the UK, we get a different song and a different cover every time they go to the round
Yeah.
table. And I like that. So, I just wanted to switch it up a little bit. So I'm sorry if I offended anybody about the song, but we got the song again. Here's the song. But Dan says he's going to take a shot. Who did you guys think he was going to go for tonight? Because we talked about this last week with Janelle. Janelle was convinced it was Parv. Remind me, Javier, did you say Parvati? You said
I
Parvati
said
too, right?
Phaedra.
Oh, you said Phaedra. Okay, yes.
Yeah.
I also believed he was going for Phaedra. I did. I think they tried to throw us that he was going to go after Parv. But I knew in my soul it was Phaedra. What
I
did you
knew it
think,
was
Janelle?
Phaedra too,
Yeah.
because why are you not going to say anything? You want it to be a big surprise, right? And
Right.
Harp would not be a surprise.
Right,
Like,
exactly.
that's the
If
most
everybody's
obvious
suspecting
one.
her, why wouldn't
Yeah.
you? Although that would be probably the better move because
Yes.
everybody's suspecting her, so you can get the heat off yourself, but
Yeah.
instead you're going for someone that no one's ever thought about before. But I knew, oh my God, it was going to be Phaedra. And boy, did Dan make a mistake tonight.
Ugh, terrible.
Sure did.
Oof, he did not know what he was getting himself into. He kicks off the round table and he's just like, all right, I'll say it. And I'm like, oh God, here we go. He's putting on a show. And he's like, since day one, I've been watching one person and it's time for it to come out. He's been collecting information. He wants to play a little game. And he tells them, raise your hand if your name hasn't been written on the chalkboard. So it's just Bergie, Sheree, Phaedra, Sandra, and Parv. But that's not enough, you guys. That's not enough, according to Dan. He talks about the voting patterns, who's voted oddly. And then he goes through, well, every one of you has voted a little oddly, but you've had a reason why, except for Phaedra when she voted Ekin-Su. And I'm like, she did have a good reason to vote Ekin-Su, though. She did. I mean, that was a good reason to vote her. Yes, it was unfortunate she got murdered the next day, but she did specifically say, you started an estrogen war between you and Janelle. Like, that's what she said. She gave a reason. And then he said, and the breakfast reactions. And this is really reaching for me now because I'm like, what are we saying here?
Thing. What?
Yes. He says, Marcus is murdered. And you go and you run over and you're like, oh, Larsa. And she's like, yeah. Tamara's voted out. And she says, oh, they're coming for all the housewives. And then Bergie, not my Bergalicious. And Phaedra's fed up at this point because this is going on for, it's very theatrical from Dan, which, we expect. And I'm not mad about Dan's theatrics here. We like theatrics from Dan. So I'm glad he at least gave us that. But he made a big mistake here. And I loved Kate Chastain just being like, not my Bergalicious is problematic for you. That really made me laugh.
I died.
Yes, that was great. And he just says, you'll never get brought up because everyone likes you. And that's the most suspicious thing. And Phaedra, this is a masterclass. This is a beautiful masterclass of taking down Dan Giesling. And she says, so you've been watching me from day one? No one's ever written a lot of people's names down. That doesn't mean they're a traitor. And then she discusses the breakfast murder reactions. And that's when Kate comes in. And then he just says, it's always a little bit extra. And that's where Kate goes, have you seen her? What did you, before we get into the rest of Phaedra's rebuttal, what did you guys think about Dan's attack on Phaedra here? Not actual attack, but like roundtable attack.
Stupid, dumb. Again, why do you gotta go for a big swing? There's so many people left. Like, you could have done this later. You know what I mean? Like, it seemed very easy for you to just take the easy route. Why is it gotta be a Dan's funeral every goddamn time? Like, we didn't have to do this.
That's what everybody's suspicious of, is the way that he plays the game, and he's a game player. So he has to make like a big show. I don't know. What do you think, Javier?
Yeah, I think he chose the wrong one. I feel like to be successful at the Traitors, I feel the best way to go about it is, if I were Dan, I would have gone with someone with suspicion on them already. Maybe he didn't want to go for Parv, whatever. He had a good bond with Parv, but he could have gone for CT. He could have gone. He could have turned it on anyone else who has ever had suspicion on them in the game. And for choosing Phaedra, who has arguably the best social game that we've seen in the house, the most relationships with people, is just the wrong person to go for. So it was very unfortunate that Dan chose that person. I mean, I did enjoy his speech, but yeah, some of his reasonings were absurd, and I'm glad that people were calling him out on that as well. So
yes. I think Dan really made a big mistake here, not turning on Parv. And Muse says in the chat too, and I know Dan did a ton of exit press. I haven't seen it all, but I did hear that he said this, is that Dan claimed that Peter basically said before the roundtable, if you agree to turn on Parv, then you'll be safe. But Dan didn't want to do that. But I think CT, if he didn't want to go against Parv, I realize he wanted to give them a traitor. But if you go against CT, he's one of the other three. I know Peter was not really in on it, but CT's had suspicion on him before. People have brought up his name. Larsa did. Janelle did. He got out of it. Dan could have used that against him. It just feels like Dan pulling Phaedra's name seemingly out of thin air when he has literally no influence. No one in the house seems to really trust him. It's like moving a mountain to be able to get Phaedra out of this house. Like, I really don't know why he thought that would work. Whereas Parv, you just have to turn on her at this point. Yeah. The suspicion's on her. You could have bought yourself more time. You could have just been like, okay, yeah, I agree. I think it's Parv. You've been acting shady. You didn't have to do this whole theatrical thing. And then maybe people would have trusted you a little bit more because you're just playing like any other faithful. But instead, you had to put on this big show and be like, I'm not saying anything until the round table. But when I take my shot, like, I'm 100%. It's like, okay, let's like relax a little bit.
Yeah, I think maybe he was fanboying a little bit. Like, he was, he really I feel like he just like really likes Parv. Like,
I think he has a lot of respect for her.
He has a lot of respect, and he's like, I can't turn on her. Meanwhile, he underestimates Phaedra at every turn, even though he should have known from the first argument.
Yes,
like, to back the hell off. Like, it's not gonna she's this like little housewife who's over the top. But did you not see how she like cussed you out the first time you tried to go for her?
Literally.
That should have been enough for you to leave her the F alone. Like, what is wrong with you?
Yes. Exactly. And at the round table, when Parv brought up the houses at the round table, she didn't save it for the turret. She did it at the round table. So he should know she is a formidable opponent and should not be taken lightly. But he really, he's underestimated her, and he's admitted it. Like, I think Phaedra is super smart. I've said this whole time is that she lies as a profession. So she's going to be able to come up with anything in a second. And she does. She says, I'm very extra, baby. I do too much because you do too little. And I feel like this is this is going to go down in Traitors history.
Amazing.
Yes.
I live for it.
Oh, yeah. Tonight you're doing way too much because you know you're getting banished and you're trying to put the heat on me, which is a crock of BS. You're a Big Brother winner, not once, but twice, which is not true. He goes almost twice. Either way, you have knowledge of this game. If there's ever a mastermind, it would be you and not a dolled up housewife. And then she brings up the Bergie vote, and she's like, if you don't forget, Bergie voted for you. He didn't vote for me. And then she tells them no one knew. She didn't know about the shields. And Bergie does stand up for her here and is like, if anything, if Phaedra's a traitor, she'd want to keep me around because I trust her. So like, I don't think she'd come for me. And she goes, but no one trusts you, darling. She really ended him. She ended him.
Yeah, destroyed.
Listen, she's gathered Dan twice already this season.
And Poverty. Like, they are no match.
Yeah.
No match.
No, what a pick. The picking, as soon as they picked Phaedra, I was like, this is perfect. This is
I was
perfect.
begging.
Yeah, me too. I was like, please, please pick her because she's so underestimated. Like, because she
Yes.
comes off as less like, you know, I don't even know. She just comes off
She's
not
funny.
ditzy, but she's like
She has
funny.
she's
Yeah,
charismatic.
yeah,
She's
or
smart.
whatever. But then you forget she like runs her own businesses. She was a lawyer. Like she went to school to be like a freaking. She had like a funeral home and stuff.
Yeah,
Like
she's a mortician.
hello, she's a mortician. Like come on, she'll take you down and then embalm you and bury
Yeah.
you later.
Just like she did to Dan. This
Yeah.
is Dan's second funeral. And she
Actual funeral.
and she carried it out. The mortician carried it out. And I put in my notes, I think this honestly deserved a standing ovation. Obviously, you can't really do that at the round table, but it's just
We
like
did it in our
whew,
homes.
yeah. I was like, "Oh." And then Peter swipes right in, comes in with the kill. He doesn't believe anymore that CT's a traitor. And then Parv starts bringing up the clique that emerged. And if you're not in Peter's group, you're going to get murdered and banished. And Bergie's like, guys, all the traitors are trying to do is divide us. And Peter's like, yeah, don't listen to them. Stay strong, everybody. And I'm like, oh my God, okay, relax a little bit. You guys don't need to do all this.
Peter annoyed me here again. I felt like he was cutting Parv off, like when Parv was trying to talk, and that annoyed me. Like, he was. He was just. This was another thing. He was just getting on my nerves. You know, he's giving very like pompous, like, you know, he is right, but. And again, like I really was liking Peter last episode, but this episode he's becoming very pompous and like he has this almost holier than thou attitude that I don't like seeing in a player. So I'm like over Peter as a player in the game. Like he made a great move, props to him, 10s for that. But as the way the game is getting to his head, and it's just I don't like the person Peter's becoming in this game anymore. It's like, come on.
Yes, totally agree. I totally agree. Yeah. Parv starts saying, you know, why she was trusting Dan. And then he just butts in and he's like, she's trying to separate from him right now, guys. Don't buy it. And she's like, can you let me finish? Like, let me finish at least what I'm saying. Yeah. Peter's doing too much here.
Yeah.
For sure.
Way
for
too
sure.
much.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't love any of this from Peter. We get to the vote. Well, she does say, you know, like I talked to Dan on day one, he's a great game player, but I may have trusted the wrong person. And then Peter's like, don't buy that, guys. Guys, don't buy that. I'm like,
okay, shut your mouth. Talk later.
Truly, please.
Focus on one.
Yes, exactly.
I will say one thing before Katie, you move on to the votes. You know how you said Phaedra should have gotten a standing ovation? I will say most of the people were like eating up what Phaedra was saying. Like I saw Parv was smiling, Kevin was like laughing. So I will say no one gave her a standing ovation, but the crowd was definitely enjoying the show Phaedra was putting on.
Oh my God. And John loved it. John loved it. Yes, it's true. You could see in their reactions and how they were watching. If all those, you know, reactions were what they were actually reacting to, seemed like they were loving it just as much as we were. Phaedra tells us in a confessional she's furious at Dan, but there's no honor amongst thieves. She's so theatrical.
I cannot with her, I swear to God.
Yeah, she is so funny. Parv tells us, you know, she's going to throw Dan on the bus. She has to shake the target off of her. And then they start the vote with Phaedra. She writes Dan, no drawing on the chalkboard for Dan. She's given like a little something for everybody, but nothing, just a big Dan. And she says in the postmortem, I don't know if you guys watched, but she said she was so excited to vote for Dan at this roundtable that she broke the chalk while she was writing. So love that from her.
It did look thick. That writing did look
that Dan
thick.
was thick and hard on that chalkboard.
Yeah.
Loved it. But she does say, she's like, you know, you've been dodging questions, dodging answers, and you're going just right up under the radar, but baby, you deflected on the wrong one because you're going to learn tonight. And he does.
Period, Phaedra. Just that's it.
Get
him. What you have to say.
Get him.
That was the dirt. He was in the coffin. She just threw the dirt on.
You're gonna learn tonight. When she said that, I was like, yes. Yes.
I know. Sandra votes for Dan because of all the evidence. Peter votes for Parv. Because once again, Peter has to do a little too much. And he says he's confident that we have enough votes for Dan. And I just want to make sure you guys don't all forget about Parv. So I'm going to vote for Parv tonight. What do you guys think about this from Peter?
Oh, I've had enough.
Yeah.
I would have liked it if Peter hadn't been doing all these extra things.
Yes.
This episode. If this was like Peter from episode 5 and he was just chill this episode and normal, And then at the end, he said, "Okay, I know we're getting Dan out, which is amazing, but so we don't forget, because I think that is important when you play the trailers. You can't forget when someone's name is said. I do think, again, it was a good thing for Peter to do, but I'm over Peter as a person, unfortunately, at this point. So I'm just like, okay, whatever, Peter, sure, good for you.
Yeah,
Like,
if it was just like a little reminder, but it's like you've been reminding us the whole
exactly.
day,
I know
like,
all you've said is Barb.
We get
and
it.
you're not gonna let it go.
Yeah,
but he does think he's gonna get murdered tonight. So he's like, if I'm out of here, you know, it kind of
he should be.
He should.
I would murder him out of spite. Like, I don't care if I lose this game.
Me too. Me too. John, my vote is for Dan. I listened intently to you, Dan, tonight, and your deflection was onto Phaedra, and that case was comprehensively rebutted. Treachery deserves to be punished by banishment. Banishment, my dear friend, should be your fate tonight. This guy is the silent slaughterer, and that's the sum of it. And Phaedra's like, yes, in the background. This was so wild from John, out of nowhere.
There it is. There it is. That is why he was the speaker. Just like
loved it.
Dropped it. Just like that.
Absolutely.
You know?
Yeah, exactly. Mic drop. I mean, I clapped. I literally was like,
me too.
Okay, let's go, John.
Round table, I swear.
Yeah, this is maybe the best round table I think I've ever seen. It's so good. And John just like coming out of nowhere with just again like burying Dan. It's just, that was amazing.
So good.
The rest of the votes are for Dan, except for Dan's vote, which is Phaedra. And he says, maybe I should have known better than go up against such an elegant lawyer. Do we think that Dan should have voted for Phaedra, or do we feel like he should have just thrown the vote to Parv just to? I guess it didn't matter at that point.
At that point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Also, can we just talk about how MJ has the tiniest handwriting I've ever seen?
Every time I'm like, why do you write people's names so small?
It's like teeny weeny. It's so weird. Yeah. Yeah.
Can't stand her or her handwriting. So
not an MJ fan.
No.
What should
do you watch Shaws of Sunset?
No.
Okay. Just from the Traitors, you're not a fan.
I was just like, what are you even doing here?
Yeah, I don't think you would like her more if you watch Shaws of Sunset.
That's what I mean. I don't think I'd like her anymore. The thing is, I'm all about, like, if you're not going to do anything, at least be entertaining to me. You know what I mean? Like, Kevin is dumb, so I'm just like, this is hilarious. And then Sheree's like, I'm trying really hard. And then MJ's like, just there.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree.
Her handwriting's tiny, so like, no.
She had a good showing when she went for Dan with Larsa that first time, but then she's been very quiet ever since then.
Yeah, she's chilling.
Yeah. Dan is banished. They got one. He tells them he's played Big Brother twice. No one's ever written his name down, which is the second time he said no one's ever written his name down. But people don't write their names. I know I'm being very like, okay, but you don't write names in Big Brother when you vote, at least as far as I'm aware. You know, it's live, so we see them go in and make their votes. I didn't realize Dan never got a vote.
Yeah, I didn't know that. That's kind of amazing. Good for him.
That is amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah, I've always known like Dan's amazing. He's my favorite Big Brother player, but like that's a pretty great statistic as well. Playing 2 whole seasons, getting to the end both times, so good for him.
Yeah, I know. I mean, he was giving Cody a little, you know. Cody was never on the block, right? Officially. I know Dan was on the block, right? But I guess he never got voted for.
Was Cody ever on the block in his first season?
I don't think so. I think he was the only one that never. I actually didn't watch that season, but I don't think he was ever on the block. And he, so I guess that means he never got voted for, really. And
they both went out this episode.
Yeah, and they're both close to.
I didn't realize that. Really?
2 Big Brother Traitors flopping, and they both won once and came in second place once. So a lot of similarities.
Cody was nommed in BB16.
Oh, he was. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, then I'm wrong. But you know, they were very similar. Not to say that they played similar games, because I'm not gonna, you know, Dan deserves much more respect than that, please. But interesting. In this game, they had a lot of similarities. Dan admits it to us in a confessional, which I don't recall seeing confessionals when Traitors get. I guess maybe we get them. I don't really remember. But that Phaedra, you know, he just says, you know, he got shredded. And he admits that he made a huge mistake tonight. And as a traitor, you really need to play a flawless game. I actually think Dan made a lot of mistakes, not just a huge mistake tonight. I think this was his biggest mistake, but I think he made a ton of mistakes throughout this whole game. He had eyes on him from like the second or third episode.
Mhm.
Like, it's not this Phaedra thing that buried you, Dan. You made a ton of mistakes. Bergie was a mistake. Being so quiet was a mistake. I think recruiting Parv might have been a mistake. I think there were a lot of mistakes made by Dan, unfortunately. So, rest in peace, Dan. It was fun. I'm glad we got to see Dan play again. And again,
Yeah.
I'm not taking anything away. I know there's a lot of debate on social media about Dan as a Big Brother player. Dan is still a masterful Big Brother player. This does not take away
Yes.
from his legacy. It's a different game. And
Yes.
he admitted he made mistakes. The pace of the game was not his pace. And, he underestimated people. He's really owning it. Muse said in the chat too, that he's, owning his loss and he's giving credit where it's due in his exit press. So good for
Yeah.
Dan. We really like a graceful loser. So shout out to him.
Yeah, and I saw like a clip from his like Twitch stream where he was saying like when he walked out, he was like, "Did I disappoint you?" or
Yeah,
whatever
the
to like
producers.
producers and
Yeah.
production and stuff. And I feel like that's not the point. Like, not everyone's gonna win. It's
Yeah.
just like about the entertainment value at the time, and he provided like the entertainment value just from just like seeing him strategize and stuff was good, but just
Yeah.
like that one speech was like
Oh, yeah.
the show.
Yes.
You know what I mean? It's the show. So I think he did great for what they needed.
He gave good TV. He maybe
He
was not the
did.
best traitor, but he gave us good TV. He gave us something to
No.
talk about. He was a topic of conversation for us every week thus far. So, shout out to Dan. I think he said recently that he wouldn't play Big Brother again, but I would really love to see him play Big Brother again. I never got a chance to watch him on the feed, so I would like to see his mastermind at work at a game where he is a master. But we probably won't get it, unfortunately. You never know.
The only way I would love to see Dan, but it has to be with like we
Other
gotta
Big
throw
Brother
in
players.
Derek, we gotta throw in Dr.
Yes,
Will, we gotta throw in
yes.
Vanessa. There has to be
Yes.
a bunch of
Danielle
gamers.
Reyes, yeah.
Yeah, we need all the best gamers. It has to be like Big Brother greatest gamers of all time
Yes.
in one season. Otherwise, Dan is screwed on Big Brother. He can't do that again.
I know. I think he's even screwed with those people though. Like they're not
Yeah,
gonna let him.
true.
Yeah, they're not gonna let him. But yeah, anything else to say about Dan's game? Should we eulogize Dan for his second funeral?
Don't mess with Phaedra. That's the last thing I gotta say about
That's
Dan.
really what
It's
I hope
not
he took away
Big
from.
Brother.
True.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I haven't had a chance to watch much of Dan's exit press, but he did a lot, so he has a lot out there. And I guess he also, I don't know the reasoning, but he did comment on why he still wanted to go with Bergie, even though I think Parvati called out the fact that she thought Peter was lying. Like he explains a lot of why he chose to go with Phaedra instead of Parv. So there's answers out there. I don't know what he said because I haven't watched it, but I know he has commented on it. So I think he's touched on all the questions that you guys have. So check out. He's done it with like everybody. So check it out. Trishelle, importantly, tells us at a confessional that Dan waited so long to say anyone's name, and he knew that they needed to be fed a traitor. And no one's suspecting it, so she thinks Phaedra's a traitor. And I am so mad at this man.
Yes, this was the worst part. Like, I'm sad to see Dan go,
Yeah.
but now there's heat on Phaedra.
I know.
Yeah. He did not need to do her like that.
Phaedra could
No.
have won this entire game, I feel, and now it's going to be much harder for her to win this game.
Yeah.
Especially because it's from Trishelle, who's in the clique of 5. The moment she tells Peter that, and if they do end up getting Parv out, it's going to be just Dan. Why have to win Phaedra's game on your way out?
I know. And I'm really hoping that Peter, well, not to get too far ahead of ourselves, but I think we could be okay. I think Phaedra can be okay if they do eventually decide to murder Trishelle in the near future. Because I don't think Trishelle's going to say it as much until like maybe there's more heat. I don't think she's going to like put her neck out there. But who knows? I mean, she went after Peppermint so baselessly that maybe she will. I really don't know. But
listen, she can do Phaedra baselessly or like, well, with basis, but at the same time, maybe people won't listen to her because of how bad the Peppermint situation is.
Yeah, exactly. Like, does she have a lot of influence?
Yeah.
I don't really know.
Who, Trishelle? Not really.
Yeah, no, right? Especially after she like blew it at the first round table. I mean, she has that crew, but we'll see what happens. After the round table, everybody's celebrating at the little bar. And John, I just wrote here that John loves Phaedra. he said to her, "The way you carry yourself is something else." And then he asked her, like, "Did you have much advance notice of what was going to be said?" And she said, "Heck no." So he was just like, "Wow!" Like he was very impressed with her ability to rebut Dan. Um, and then Peter brings his crew. This is where I got really pissed off at Peter, where I was like, "Okay, this man has got to go." He brought his crew of 5 into a room, and he shut the door again. I'm pretty sure. And it's John, Peter, Kevin, Bergie, and Trishelle are his group. And he's like, "We got to come up with like a name. What are we going to call ourselves?" I was like, "No, bro, you're really not making a named
No, we're
alliance
not
here
doing
now,
this.
are you, on the Traitors? Like, come on. We can't be doing this. We can't."
He's really killing it.
Ugh.
Killing me. Sorry, that's what I mean.
Yes.
He's killing me in the bad way. Like, oh my gosh, come on, Peter.
Yes, I can't. And then Sandra's like, "Let's go see what all like the most faithfuls are doing." And then they all bust in, and Parvati calls him out again. And she's like, "You're turning off a lot of people by doing this, closing the doors and stuff." And good for Parv on this one. Because like it is annoying. There were a bunch of other people left out of that conversation. He just pulls them all in. It's like kind of not a good look. And I think if they do, well, we'll get there. I don't want to get too far ahead. We're almost there. But she says in a confessional, it's her versus Peter, and she's going to take this bachelor down. And that's it. Until we get to the turret. Anything else to say about this Peter nonsense before we talk about what's to come?
No, I'm just kind of sick of him.
Same.
I'm very excited from the preview to see the fate because Phaedra and Peter
Yeah,
are
they
gonna
go at it.
they're gonna go at it. So is that gonna be this coming episode? Is it gonna be like later on in the game? I don't know. But yeah, no, I'm kind of sick of him.
Yeah, I'm very sick of him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hope I was talking a little bit about this last week's podcast, but I just really hope that everyone who's not in the clique of 5, in this episode, we also see Sandra mentioned that a little bit. So I hope that everyone else realizes like this is not okay. Unfortunately, in the game of Traitors, one of those 5 can still be a traitor, even if Peter was right about Dan. It doesn't matter. One of those can still be a traitor. So I hope that everyone else gets so sick of those 5 and they also start getting whittled down. It's like in Big Brother when the alliance you don't like is running the show, and this is becoming the alliance I don't like. So we gotta get them out of here. That's my hope.
I know they're all fun individually, right? For the except Peter's kind of annoying. No, yes, not Trishelle. 1000% not Trishelle. And like Kevin's whatever, but like John we love because he's comedic relief. Bergie's like, I think he's emerged. He's like a caterpillar that's turning into, he's not there yet, but he's like turning into a butterfly. But yeah, I don't know. I don't think Kate, of all people, I don't think Sandra, if they all band together and are like, this is kind of bullshit, I think they're going to break that group up for sure. Kate's not going to go for that. But we get to the turret. We have some business to take care of before the episode's over. Phaedra says, "I am pissed. And if I weren't a Christian woman, I would rip his heart out."
I wrote that line too. It's so good.
Oh, I love it. And I actually love seeing these two together and without Dan because they were kind of like supporting each other. Like Phaedra says, like, the ringleader, Peter, she's coming for you, to Parv. And she says she doesn't know if Parv has a choice other than to murder him. She's like, do it, murder him. And Parv's like, I don't know if that's enough. Like, I don't know. And then Alan comes in and they get some news. And as the rules dictate, they have the option to recruit instead of murder. As we know, the recruit can refuse and carry on as faithful. But if they do recruit someone, there won't be a murder. So Parv wants to roll the dice here and recruit Peter. But Phaedra is like, this is a little risky. I don't really trust him. He's going to turn on us. I agree with Phaedra. What do you guys think?
I agree with Phaedra too. It's gonna get to his head when he's a traitor. Like I think he's gonna take the traitor thing, and then he's gonna be like all full of himself when he's a traitor as well. And then he's also gonna protect his little crew.
Yep.
As a traitor, he's gonna be like, nah, I refuse to murder that person. No, I refuse to murder that person. Like he's gonna try to steer clear of that crew, which he should really just. If he's smart, he should murder his whole crew.
Yeah, that would never tie back to him.
He should 100% murder his own crew because no one would they're probably like, oh, we're not murdering him because he knows who the other traitors are, but he could just murder his crew one by one because it's like people around him. What does he need them for?
Yeah, I feel like Just from all the seasons I've watched of the Traitors so far, it's just when you recruit someone, I have yet to see it really benefit the Traitors. Unfortunately,
I
like US
No.
one, it didn't help. Canada didn't help, and I just don't see Peter being the person who's going to really help them get further in the game. I kind of wish that they would murder. Honestly,
Me too.
um, I just don't. Whether Peter says yes, he's going to be in a better place than either of them, unless they somehow can throw Peter under the bus. And if hopefully the whole other side of the house was not in the five really is getting sick of Peter, maybe that could work. And Parv and Phaedra can then turn the rest of the house and get Peter out. And if they give Peter as a traitor, maybe everyone else will trust them. You know, there could be a scenario where this could work, but I feel like a lot of things have to fall in place, and I just don't see it happening, especially when there's so much heat on Parv already. So I kind of wish that they would kill here,
Me
as
too.
opposed to recruit Peter.
I totally agree. I think murder this night and then just recruit the next one if you really want a third person. But I don't think Peter is the right choice to. Well, it could go either way. I agree with you, Javier. I think a lot of things have to fall into the right place, but I think you're also giving Peter so much access to so much
Yeah.
information, and he's dangerous. Like you see, he's a game player. You see, he's making plans and building strategy. The only thing here I could see is if Phaedra and Parvati really go all in together and decide to like hatch a big plan to get rid of Peter and say like, it's a little bit weird that Peter did this plan. He probably knew that who the traitors were, don't you think? He knew who they were and then like planted that. Couldn't that be a reason? And now he's like gathering these faithfuls who trust him implicitly, who aren't really familiar with gaming other than Trishelle, I guess. And they're never going to vote him out because he's a traitor. So he's gathering his army who will keep him safe. Like they really could put an assault out on Peter. I just don't know if they're thinking that way. I would love to see it. We also don't know if Peter is going to accept that we're left on a cliffhanger. But I just think, I don't know. I just worry because I don't think Peter is going to stop going after Parv because he can't.
No.
Because that'll
Yeah,
make him look too suspicious.
exactly.
So even if he is a traitor,
What's the point?
he's still going to go after you. And then
Yeah.
that puts Phaedra in a really bad position because then she's one-on-one with Peter. She doesn't really have as much control or trust unless they really decide like we could work together if we get out Parv and get to the end. But I don't know. The other thing is like Peter really does want to win the game. That's what he says. He's like, the only thing I'm thinking about is winning. I don't know. I think he's a little too egotistical. You can't control him. He's already got a one up on you because of this stupid plan. Like it's just too dangerous.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm scared for Parv the most.
Me too.
I don't know how. I don't. The same way I didn't see it for Dan, I don't see it anymore for Parv. Unfortunately.
No.
Especially now that we know everybody thinks Parv is a traitor and has thought she's a traitor. Like I don't think that's going to go anywhere.
No, I don't think so.
Like, it's not going to go away, which is unfortunate. It's unfortunate. But she's playing fast and loose the same way. Maybe not as fast and loose as Dan, but she's clearly not doing a great job if everybody's suspicious of her. So, one thing Phaedra did say that made me laugh. She's stressing. She doesn't trust him. But Parv wants to watch Peter have to murder his friends. And Parvati does ask Phaedra, like, are you okay with this? Because I know you had a tough day too. And Phaedra says, you're on your deathbed. I'm just walking into the hospital, but you're in the ICU, babe. You're about to flatline. It just really made me laugh.
I wrote that line too. It's so good. Phaedra's just on it. This
so
episode.
Good.
Like, how can you just hit every time? I just don't get it. She's blessed.
Just so blessed with just like the gift of gab or whatever it is.
Quickest wit. She's just so funny.
Wit. Such good wit.
Yeah. She's the best. So what do you guys think Peter's gonna do? Do you think he's gonna accept, or do you think yeah.
Oh yeah. He's like, I'm on my deathbed. This saves me. So
yeah.
And no one's ever gonna think I'm a traitor. So
yeah, I think he's gonna say yes.
Yep. I saw Suri, a clip. I didn't listen to the third episode of Tamara's Traitors podcast, but Suri was on, and Suri was singing Peter's praises, and she did like the move or she liked it for Peter anyway. She thought Peter, would do really well as a traitor. That could be handing him the win. So I don't know. Not that that's a good thing for Parv, but she likes it for Peter. So we'll see. I like it for Peter too. I just don't like it for our girls. I did watch the postmortem. So just a couple of things from, outside of the episode. But Dan, like I said earlier, did say he underestimated the non-gamers. He did talk about the speed of the game, which we also spoke about. He also told Sharon Tharp, I watched part of her interview with him. I didn't finish the whole thing, but that Phaedra is still a little salty with him. They've DM'd a little bit and she does not feel great about him. So I'm ready for this reunion, which I think is filming this weekend.
Oh,
in New
really?
York,
That's
or this
exciting.
week. Yeah, it's filming very soon.
Oh,
Yes.
damn.
Yes. So I can't wait. Phaedra knows how to deliver at a reunion. So I'm excited. I'm excited. And Phaedra in the postmortem was talking about Dan, and she said, "You can't be too social, but you can't act like a recluse and be a creepy little man," which I thought was hilarious.
Damn.
Yeah, I
God
thought that was
damn
hilarious.
it,
I know
Phaedra.
she was
The
still
jugular.
dragging him in the
The
postmortem.
jugular. You can't be a
Yes.
recluse, man. Is crazy.
Yes. Little creepy man. And then she said, he basically said, "I'm a traitor. So from that point, he can go to hell," about Dan. So she is not over it. And Dan said, he thought he was going to catch Phaedra off her guard, but he did not expect to get decades of legal expertise thrown at him. So,
Dummy.
we'll see. We'll see what happens. Anything else that we have not discussed? Any questions or comments or anything from the chat that you want us to talk about? Anything else from this episode or anything you're excited about?
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited about next week or this week.
Me too. Me
I'm
too.
excited to see what Peter ends up saying, but I'm just Phaedra, do something, please. I just want to see Phaedra at the end, and I hope that this Dan little BS that he did does not throw off her game too much.
I hope not to.
I'm
I
team
worry.
Phaedra 100%.
Oh, me too. Me too. I'm all in. But I've been all in. I've been all in on her, so it's nothing new. Sort of Phaedra related news. Candy Burris did announce that she's taking a break after 14 seasons
I
of Real
saw that on
Housewives of
Twitter.
Atlanta,
About
which
time.
means we could get Phaedra back because that was the barrier to entry for Phaedra, which
Isn't she on Married
she's on Married to
to
Medicine.
Medicine?
I don't know
right
if they would
now?
transition her back, but it could happen. It could happen. They would be smart to do it because Real Housewives of Atlanta has been in the dumps for a couple of seasons,
so
and Phaedra is
stale.
like at an all-time popularity high. She's like at a Nene level right now, I feel like. So, would be smart, but I know a lot of people have mixed feelings about that because of how she left the show. So, anyway, all right. Well, Chanelle, if nothing else, where can the people find you? Tell everybody what you're up to these days. Give yourself a shout out and a plug.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm still streaming. I'm over on Twitch. Been doing a lot of TikTok streaming lately, so you can catch me on those two platforms doing a lot of like cozy game content. So if you like Stardew, I've been playing this one pizza game a lot. So if you want to watch me make pizza, be hungry constantly, you can do that as well. Yeah, so I've been doing that for the most part.
Amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Javier, how about you?
You can find me, everyone, at _thestarboy on Twitter, sharing all my thoughts on all my favorite shows. And I just want to say again, I'm excited that we got the Fire and Pod crew back. It was so great having you, Chanelle. Thank you so much
It's coming
for
back
joining us.
soon. It's
So
coming
soon.
back soon.
It
Yeah.
is. So it was great to just chat again with you, Chanelle. So,
Yes.
and as always, Katie, I'm excited to be
Yes.
back here next week because I feel like this is going to be another good episode. The season's just turning out really great. So
I know this has been so fun, and it is great to have us all back together. This is great. You can find me on Twitter at RealSimKatie. You can also find me on Twitch at twitch.tv/RealSimKatie, but I am not as consistent and great as Chanelle. I'm a slacker, but you can find me there if you want. I pop in every now and again. Life gets busy, but yeah, and you can find us here anywhere you listen to your podcasts. We did set up a feed for the Traitors, but it is not showing up specifically in some of the podcast apps for some reason. But search us. We're called Silent Traitors. If you can find us, I'm gonna try and do a little troubleshooting. But you can find all of our Traitors coverage there. So any past seasons, any of the international coverage run by Sarah Carradine, which she does an amazing job. UK just finished. She has all the Australia and New Zealand seasons there. She has UK last season. So if you're doing a binge, if you're new to Traitors and you want to rewatch everything, we have a ton of Traitors content for you guys. That Javier and I also covered Canada. So everything's there. Every season of the Traitors has a podcast for you to listen to. So check it out if you want. And like, subscribe, rate us 5 stars if you like what you hear. And again, I apologize to that man about my cough drop, or that woman, I don't know, that person, about my cough drop last week. I'm sorry. I made sure no cough drop this week. Have a great evening, everybody. And we will see you next week on Sign the Traitors. Bye.
Bye, everyone.